Zaventem is a Belgian municipality in the province of Flemish Brabant. It is located in the Dijleland area, one of the three large recreational areas which together form the Groene Gordel around the Brussels-Capital Region. The municipality comprises the subdivisions deelgemeenten of Nossegem, Sint-Stevens-Woluwe, Sterrebeek and Zaventem proper. On the 1st of January 2006, Zaventem had a total population of 28,651. The total area is 27.62 square kilometers, which gives a population density of 1,037 inhabitants per square kilometer. The official language is Dutch. Zaventem is the home of Brussels Airport, together with neighboring town of Dijleland. Etymology: the old spelling of the municipality's name is Zaventem, but the oldest notation of Zaventem is Saventa, which dates from records of 1117. There are several hypotheses on the meaning of the name. One of them refers to the 7 pools or small ponds that existed in the area during medieval times. Another one refers to small ponds in a sandy environment. Others interpret the name Zaventem as a reconfiguration of Zaventem in tumuli burial mounds, or Zaaivelden. History: the earliest history of Zaventem goes back to the Neolithic and the Roman era. From burial remains it has become clear that the area also was inhabited during the times of the Frankish Empire and the Merovingian dynasty. Zaventem was part of the county of Edgar and the county of Leuven successively before it was added to the Duchy of Brabant. Around the 10th century, Zaventem was owned by the Abbey of Nivelles. The village centre arose at the crossing of two important roads between Vilvoorde and Tervuren, and between Brussels and Erps, with the church at the centre of this growing village. The parish was established before the 9th century, but the church, which was named after the patron Saint Martin, came to be owned by the Abbey of Nivelles at the end of the 9th century. In 1147 the right of ownership was transferred to the Diocese of Cambrai. The parish remained dependent on this diocese until 1559, after which the Archdiocese of Mechelen took it over. From 1112 to 1122, the vassal of Lambertus de Cranum, the Lord of Zaventem, was called Ricardus de Zaventem. It has been thought that de Zaventem was a local noble family that coexisted with the noble family of the de Cranum overlords. At the time, Forest Abbey and the Abbey of Kortenberg were important landowners. The feudal heerlijkheid of Zaventem then came to be owned by the Knight Hendrik van der Meer, and only after it was owned by another noble family. In 1381, he was officially recognized as the Lord of Zaventem, and his family continued to own it until 1605. They possessed a castle close to the parish church, but this was broken down during the second half of the 1920s. In 1605, the Chancellor of the Duchy of Brabant, Ferdinand de Boischat, became the Lord of Zaventem, and when he was made a baron in 1621, Zaventem became a barony which subsequently expanded with the villages Nossegem, Sterrebeek and Sint-Stevens-Woluwe. The de Boischat family remained the proprietor until the French Revolution. Originally, there was a large forest northwest of Zaventem called Saventelo where the Dukes of Brabant used to go hunting. The area was largely deforested in the 17th century. Nevertheless, Zaventem remained predominantly agricultural during the most part of the 19th century, but its industrial activities go at least back to the 13th century. During this time, various water mills were installed on the Woluwe River that were later converted to paper mills. Initially, the river had many bends along its path in Zaventem, which made the supply of energy from the water power rather difficult. In 1208, Godfrey, Duke of Brabant, gave orders to alter and elevate the pathway of the Woluwe River so that the water mills would be supplied with a sufficient amount of water. This greatly benefited the paper industry later on in the 18th and 19th century. For the 18th century, however, Zaventem gradually changes from an agricultural community to an industrial community. Especially the construction of the road between Leuven and Brussels from 1705 to 1710 contributed to this evolution. From 1850, the development of steam engines even intensified the process of industrialization, having a negative effect on agricultural activities. Gradually, the large leasehold estates of farmland were replaced in the 19th century by houses of laborers. In 1866, the railway track between Brussels and Leuven, as a sign of the industrial era, was inaugurated, splitting Zaventem into two parts. In addition to the paper industry, industrial activity also started to revolve around the tanning of leather in the late 19th century. At the start of the 20th century, the car manufacturer Excelsior, that would become world-renowned later on, produced some of its cars in a factory in Zaventem. All these industrial initiatives prompted the building of various small castles and grand villas in the municipality for the executive directors of the companies, such as the Feldheim Villa of the wealthy eponymous family that was involved in the tanning industry. After World War II, however, many of the factories were forced to close, unable to keep up with foreign competition. With the building of Brussels Airport at the occasion of Brussels World's Fair in 1958, the features of Zaventem's landscape have been altered drastically. The location used to be the place of the large Saventelo forest. Nevertheless, the airport gave a tremendous boost to local employment that benefited Zaventem greatly. Added to that, the strong growth of semi-industrial companies during the 1960s and 1970s, Zaventem became an important economic hub. 2016 Brussels bombings. During the 2016 Brussels bombings, 2 explosions took place in Brussels Airport, Zaventem at 7:58 local time, one near the American Airlines and Brussels Airlines check-in desks and one next to a Starbucks coffee shop. A third bomb was found in the airport and was detonated by a controlled explosion. The airport was to remain closed until the 24th of March but was extended till the 28th of March. Flights bound to Brussels Airport were either cancelled or diverted to nearby airports such as Brussels South Charleroi Airport, Ostend Bruges International Airport, and Schiphol. At 9:11 CET, an explosion took place at Maalbeek metro station. ISIL claimed responsibility for the attacks as an act of revenge against Belgium for participation in the ongoing military intervention against ISIL. Places of interest: Church of St. Martin and Anthony van Dyck's masterpiece. The Church of St. Martin was built in 1567 and has been a protected monument since 1938. Originally, the church was a typical basilical church in Romanesque architecture with 3 naves, an eastern tower and an apse. In the 16th century, the church was converted into a Gothic building and further enlarged in the 19th century. It contains a 1621 painting of St. Martin and a beggar, produced when the artist visited the town that year. De Vest Museum of Local History. The museum exhibits objects that are mainly loaned from a Society for Local History. They are primarily old objects that were used in the past, such as weighing instruments, threshing and transport material. Archival pieces regarding local societies, municipal governments and economic activities. In addition, there are artifacts that were used for farming purposes and folkloric instruments of craftsmen and other professions. Furthermore, there are also artifacts relating to the monarchy, the church life, the world wars and historiographical accounts and flags of Zaventem. Outside, large agricultural instruments are exhibited like plows and harvesting machines to grub up chicory. The building of the museum was erected in 1957 as a storage place in the architectural style of a 17th-century house thus to refer to the houses that used to be in the area during that century. In 1977, the building was fully restored and converted into the local history museum, Mariadal Castle. The Mariadal Castle in the municipal park was built at the end of the 19th century by the archaeologist Baron Emile de Monk. It contains 2 building layers and 7 bays, one of which being occupied by the Round Tower. The roof has several dormers. The building has been used for different purposes such as a public secondary school, hawker businesses, and the offices of the Public Centre for Social Welfare. In 1988, the complex was renovated and reopened as a cultural community centre. The location of the castle used to be the place where the 17th-century homestead Hof van Opham stood. On the terrain used to be a homestead that functioned as a fief of the Duke of Brabant. It depended on the old Ermeren castle of the eponymous Lord of Zaventem. Because of various hereditary separations, the homestead went its own way and was sold to noblemen from Brussels in the 16th century. The domain was reunited in the 17th century. House of the Seven Knights. The House of the Seven Knights is a building from the 17th century and was the property of the Dubois van den Bossche family. It therefore was called the Van den Bossche House and unrightfully the House of the Seven Knights. In 1312, the ruling Van der Meerens family from Sterrebeek acquired a fief homestead called the Seven Fiefs of Wezembeek that were sold to Ferdinand de Boischat in the 17th century. In several charters there is a mentioning of the 7 hereditary lords of Zaventem and the Servantship of Wezembeek who decided on important decisions so they possibly controlled the homestead at some point. It is wrong, however, that the Van den Bossche house is called the House of the Seven Knights, considering that the former is a mansion from the 17th century. Because of the multitude of properties, the Van den Bossche family was highly regarded amongst the people, which may explain the confusion. Stockman's Mill. The Stockman's Mill is the only water mill that is left in Zaventem. Its history goes back to the 13th century when, during the time of Henry III, Duke of Brabant, the mill was mentioned in an official document of 1249. Around 1450, this mill company belonged to the Van der Beke family, which is why it was called the Sterrebeek Mill, at that time adjacent to the Sterrebeek court. The court and the mill were separated in the 16th and 17th century due to a series of inheritances and sales. From 1675 until the beginning of the 19th century, the mill remained the property of the highly esteemed Van den Bossche family. In 1807 the mill was sold to Karel de Velde. When during the Belgian Revolution of 1830, Dutch troops were stationed in the fields along the Woluwe River between Zaventem and Sint-Stevens-Woluwe, Miller Karel de Velde stopped the water from flowing through in order to flood the fields and the Dutch would retreat. The mill subsequently became the property of the Stockmans family after Karel de Velde's granddaughter married Jan Philippe Stockmans, hence the name Stockman's Mill. The watermill was used to grind the grains, and later it was also used as a paper mill. Watermills contributed greatly to the early industrialization of the area. It remained functioning until the mid-20th century, but its condition decreased gravely. A private owner bought it and renovated it in the end of the 1980s to convert it into a restaurant and tavern. Infrastructure. The Zaventem Fire Department provides fire protection services. Railway stations in the municipality include Zaventem, Brussels Airport and Nossegem. Economy. European Air Transport has its head office in Building 45 on the grounds of Brussels Airport and in Zaventem. Belgium's airspace is generally considered to be the busiest and most complex of Europe. Ingersoll-Rand has its European headquarters in the Alma Court building in Sint-Stevens-Woluwe, Zaventem. Former companies. When it existed, Virgin Express had its head office in Building 116 on the grounds of Brussels Airport and in Zaventem. SN Brussels, which formed in 2002, had its head office in Airport Building 117 when it existed. Prior to its disestablishment, Sabina had its head office in the Sabina House in Zaventem. Prior to its disestablishment, Bel-Air had its head office in Building 45 on the grounds of the airport in Zaventem. When Trans-European Airways existed, its head office was in Building 117 of Mels-Broek Airport. When Citybird existed, its head office was in Building 117D in Mels-Broek Airport in Zaventem. When Cargoby Airlines existed, its head office was in the Cargo Building 706 in Zaventem. National Airport. Brussels Airport is the national airport of Belgium. It covers an area of 1,245 hectares with about 225,000 flight movements and at least 19 million passengers annually, therefore making it the largest airport in Belgium. The airport is located in the province of Flemish Brabant on the municipal territory of Zaventem, Machelen and Steenokkezeel, and it is run by the Brussels Airport Company, previously known by the abbreviation BIAC. The Belgian capital Brussels is at a distance of 12 kilometers and can be reached with public transport. History. The home of the national airport originates in the municipality of Edgar. During the First World War, the German occupiers started building an airfield because of the proximity of Brussels, the connection to the road to Harkt and the flat terrain. After the war, however, the airfield came into the hands of the Belgian Air Force. At the end of the 1930s, the Belgian Ministry of Defense purchased land in Mels-Broek to build a new airfield. Shortly after, the Second World War broke loose, during which the Germans set up an airport in Mels-Broek during the occupation. Only starting the 1950s, Zaventem was chosen by the Belgian government as the location for a national airport. Even Mels-Broek was too small, especially taking the number of visitors of Brussels World's Fair of 1958 into account. The Mels-Broek premises were now made available to the Air Force. The buildings of the Zaventem Airport were designed in 1956 to 1958 by Maxime Brunfo, Georges Bontink and Jos Mugen. It was initially estimated that it should have a maximum capacity of 6 million passengers per year. The 1950s were characterized by an uncurbed belief in technological progress. This was translated into the architecture by using such materials as aluminium, concrete, steel, and glass. The transit hall was intended as a striking feature with a space of 100 meters long, 55 meters wide and 18 meters high, covered with a curved roof structure out of aluminium. Over the years, expansions and adjustments were made, leading to the loss of much of the original design. In 1994, Pier B was put into use so that 21 million passengers could be handled annually. Pier A was opened in 2002 to ensure a better flow and increased passenger comfort, processing another 25 million passengers annually. Education. Schools in Zaventem include Gemeentelijk as well as Catholic primary and secondary schools, and Gemeentelijk Academy for Music, Word and Dance. Brussels American School is in Zaventem. Zaventem has a library, parks and recreation. 7 parks are located in Zaventem. International relations. Twin towns. Sister cities. Zaventem is twinned with Avesnes-Limousin, France. Blankenheim, Germany. Gallery.